This interview is brought to you by the Pro Fight Shop in Hollywood. It's Radio Rahim sitting here at Fortune Gym with Jeremy Williams, heavyweight contender now. It's interesting to say that because you've been in this game so long. You've been out of the ring for 4 years, and when a fighter like you comes back after such a long layoff, the question is always, the first is why?
Why? Well, I wouldn't have come back unless there was a really, really definite opportunity to do something that would, enhance my life. I'm fighting for the WBU World Boxing Union Heavyweight Championship, and it's a thrill and to be in that position, and ultimately fighting to be the first ever biracial heavyweight champion. There's been a white champion, there's been a black champion, and there's been a Latin champion. There's never been a mixed black or white champion, and I think that, the passing of time and the tanning of America and me at this point in my life, I'm ready for this situation.
The interesting thing about coming back after a layoff like this is, I just happened to catch you at the gym today. I'm working out. I was out for a week, and it feels like I never did this before. And I come in here 6 days a week. After 4 years, how do you get the rust off? Heavyweight, title fights are not easy. How do you get back in there with the timing, with your rhythm, the conditioning?
There's a lot of invariables that you're talking about, and it's more of a, like, I've never left the gym. I've been in boxing since I was 6 years old. I turned 40 in August, and Bernard Hopkins, you have set a precedent that 40 is the new golden age of boxing, and it's not, in life I'm not old. In boxing, I'm a relic, but at this point, I don't feel that way. The talent out there, and I'll say this with all clarity and calmness, that there is no grit in the heavyweight division. In boxing itself, a lot of guys they got 18 fights, they want to be champion. I have almost 50 professional fights, been boxing for 34 years, and only now do I really, truly in my heart feel like I am ready to be the heavyweight champion of the world.
And when you say only in your heart now do you feel ready, surely you don't mean physically. So in what way are you ready now that you weren't before?
I think emotionally, boxing, it's never been, I've been beat a few times. Sam Peters will talk about, I've been beat a few times, and every time, I knew I was going to get beat before I lost, before I did the fight. Something in my heart and my spirit told me that this wasn't right, and then I just let nature predict itself. My heart told me I wasn't going to win, and I didn't. And every fiber in my body tells me now that this is the exact opportunity for me to present myself in the best light and fight my best fight. Win, lose, or draw, this is what I personally, for myself, want to do. And so I'm going to do it.
You brought up the Sam Peter fight. You've had many big fights. Obviously, that was the last big one that people remember because the knockout was so vicious.
Wow, I see that and go, damn, was that me? Unbelievable. And then, so the shock of it comes and goes. The history of that fight will never change. It is what it is. But then when I look at the fight and I look at Sam Peters, and he's a good guy. He called me a couple of days later to see if I was doing well, and I think that was very respectable and very good for him and very gentlemanly of him as a fighter. But I still believe, and I say this to everybody, I'm a better fighter than Sam Peters. I just didn't fight my fight. And when I went into the fight, in my mind, my subconscious, that thing that talks to you when you're talking to somebody else and there's something talking to you, telling you the situation you're in, my subconscious, I'd already lost. And it just was Sam Peters' job to make it happen. I believe I would call Sam Peters and fight him straight away for free. In the gym, just, something for me, for my own sanity. That doesn't mean Sam Peters controls my destiny or my career, but I just feel like I'm far, far better fighter than Sam Peters.
Interesting enough, you're fighting for a vacant title. Should you become a WBU heavyweight champion, are you going to call out Sam Peters?
No, I want to call out somebody who's going to make some noise for me. Sam Peters is where? You should do sound effects of crickets, right? But where is he? He doesn't define my career. What defines my career is what I do now as a champion.
4 years ago, I don't think we'd be having the conversation we're going to have now, lastly, about the Sam Peters thing, because, the NFL is looking at concussion, brain injury, the kind of toll it takes for that kind of brain trauma. And whenever you get concussed, it is brain trauma. In boxing now, we're only now starting to have even a conversation about the effects of fighting a long career, especially at the heavyweight division. I've seen you in here with your children. You've got a good life. You've kept your money. You're doing well in business. Why even risk it?
I think it's a risk when you feel like there's no reward. A risk is walking across the street every day, but you do it. A risk is, telling your boss, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to go off and go into my own world and do my own thing because, whatever you do, I can do it better, so I'll do it for myself. If there's no risk in life, what is your reward? Right? I put myself in a situation where I need to prove something, not to you, to me. To me. My mother died, and she should have been sitting with me ringside, but she's with me every day now, telling me, if my mom would have told me that this is not the right move for me, I would have not done it. But everything in her fiber, everything in my fiber tells me that this is the time and the perfect storm situation for me. This fight, mind you, has been scheduled and canceled 3 separate times. That's not me doing that. That's divine intervention. That's God's will. That's whatever it is. And I am now, today, in the best emotional place ever in my life. And for me, because I've been boxing for so long, boxing is purely emotional. The physical part we all can do. I can teach you how to do it. I can teach the guy holding the camera to do it. But the emotional side of it is what makes the champion and the contender.
Now, 4 years ago, MMA was out there and they had their fans, but it wasn't as prominent as it is now. And the reason I bring it up is because the guy you're facing has an MMA career as well, which is maybe the first time I can remember that I've ever talked about a championship fight where one of the opponents, in boxing anyway, had an MMA history. With maybe the exception of Kimbo Slice.
Well, James Toney and Randy Couture.
But that's an MMA fight. What I'm saying is, this guy's coming into the boxing ring. You guys are fighting for a title, and he still fights MMA. How are you training to adjust? There's got to be adjustments to be made with a guy who has an MMA style, which I don't even know what that would be.
So, it is. People say, "Oh, it's fighting." Dude, it is completely different. The guys that I move around is a colloquialism for sparring. The guys I move around with are MMA guys because they're non-conventional boxers, they're kickboxers, they're grapplers, and they're tough, strong guys. MMA guys are tough. Why? Because they're awkward. They're not the conventional, standard, classic or classically trained boxer. They have a version of a hook, a version of a left hand, a version of a right hand, or uppercut. I mean, their versions of it are all to produce something else. My punches are to produce power and speed. Their punches are maybe to produce a hold or a phase or something where they can grab and do something else. I did MMA, and I think it's a great sport. I love doing it. But, boxing is where my roots are. And so me fighting an MMA guy is kind of like, promising.
So you feel like this gives you an advantage in the fight because obviously you're a professional boxer for decades and you know exactly what happens in there, or is it a disadvantage or at least something more of a challenge because he's so awkward and it's not something that you faced before?
It is definitely more of a challenge. It is more of a test of my own grit. Am I tough enough? Am I strong enough? Am I man enough? Am I willing to do everything I need to do to become the heavyweight champion of the world? There are no heavyweight champions right now. American heavyweight champions right now. And then for that title to come back to America, to be by a guy who is purely American. My father is black, my mother is white. I'm from Iowa. You cannot get more American than me.
Jeremy, it had seemed your book had been written, that your boxing career, your story had been told, and there was a period on that sentence, if you will.
Sure.
But you've decided to write another chapter. You've decided that this story's not over. Tell me, when it is over, when you finally decide to close that book, what's this last chapter about? What is this part? Why is it necessary?
Well, closing the book and writing a new chapter are two different spots. Writing this chapter meaning becoming American heavyweight champion. Bring the title back to America, make a substantial stance and a bit of noise in the heavyweight division. I don't know if I'm the answer, or I don't know if I could beat Klitschko or anything, but it is what it is. maybe I need to ask Jamil McClain, hey, you want to get on? You want to do the fight? You want to do a fight with me? Somebody's got a huge fan base. Kimbo Slice. Hey, let's go. Let's do this fight in America somewhere, in Des Moines, Iowa, in Minnesota, in Indiana. Let's bring this title back. Let's make this title. I don't need to go to Germany in order to have a fan base. I need to be here, and America needs to be proud of an American heavyweight champion. So my idea would be to bring Americans back here and let's fight with them. Let's keep this title in America. Why not, right? And then think about this, and I've said this many, many times. The title is only important to the person you make it important to, right? WBU title. People go, what's that? Well, the WBO was nothing until Nassim Hamed grabbed it. Nothing. Then Michael Noor grabbed it. Then it was like, wait, who is it? So it's not about the title. It's about the person. And it's about bringing a realism to my cause is, you know what? I'm showing grit. I'm showing that our age, 40-year-old guys can still do it. You're not going to put you out the pasture and I'm 40 and that's middle age. Fuck that. Dude, that's when it's good. That's when life is good. That's when you understand what the fast lane on the freeway is for, right? And what the passing lane is for. That's when you understand that, you know what? You need to teach your children the way you want them to be. And when I had kids when I was like 20 years old, I was a kid having kids. And I look back now and I go, you know what? Not the way to go. I was fighting for money when I was younger. Now, I'm fighting for prestige. I'm fighting for entitlement. I'm fighting for the people my age who were looked over like I was and bringing it back.
Jeremy, good luck, man.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure to watch your career. Myself, growing up, I wish you all the best in Waterloo, Iowa. What is it? March 30th.
March 30th. So that's a week from today. Today's Saturday.
Right. You're March 30th in Waterloo, and you're facing
I've got Travis Fulton.
Travis Fulton for the WBU World Heavyweight title. Radio Rahim with Jeremy Williams.